Hello everybody and welcome back to NCAA 2004 in the Alabama Crimson Tide Dynasty mode, and we are here looking over some bowl rankings because we currently sit atop of them with TCU directly behind us and Southern Miss directly behind them, with the Air Force Falcons coming in at 4, the only undefeated teams in all of college football. But of course we have West Virginia and USC sitting on the outside as well. But the big thing to note about that top 4 is that we have two Conference USA members sitting at number 2 and number 3. So remember in the last video, I think, Ohio State finally lost a game to Penn State, and that knocked him out of the number 2 spot. So now it's pretty much open to one of those mid-majors, as you saw. So we have 4 teams left, and we're the only Power 6 team that remains undefeated in all of college football. So whoever we end up meeting, assuming we end up winning through our schedule and winning the SEC Championship again, whoever we would end up meeting then is going to be a mid-major between either TCU, Southern Miss, or Air Force. So Conference USA has a really heavyweight battle at the top here. And we will obviously be seeing that game in a couple weeks, I think. So, well, you know, this is the second to last week before rivalry week, so we'll probably be seeing it at the end of this video, more than likely, and we will get the answers to who exactly we might be facing in the national title game, assuming that we can get there ourselves. But we're going to focus on another game before we get into the very end of our schedule. I'm probably not going to watch the Iron Bowl in the last season, and we will probably also not focus on the Virginia game that I scheduled in week 15, because it's not truly relevant, I guess, to the schedule. I've already kind of included the Ole Miss game and the LSU game, which doesn't really have much of an impact on our season, but rather these are two teams that we don't watch often or watch on an annual basis. So I figured we would showcase these games in our final season. So, but the one thing to note, I did forget to record my my typical roster breakdown before I did the actual recording for the game. So my stats for this game are inaccurate, and I've lost track of whose numbers are what, but that's all going to be corrected in the next video, which is probably going to be the SEC Championship game. So that'll be normal again, but just, I record all these games typically in bulk back to back, and sometimes I just forget my process that I do for each one and kind of goof things up sometimes, and it happens. But I do have names down for LSU, so I still do have the roster here with some numbers to note. There's not a lot of numbers to note on this LSU team, but if there are, I do have them wrote down. So it's just our own numbers that I'm just a little on because I didn't have them recorded. But either way, we do come away in our first drive here with a field goal as we stall out in LSU territory, and we have to take 3 points. So heading the other way now is LSU, and already an interception. And that has been a problem for Ron Peterson, the quarterback here at LSU. He has been pretty turnover prone in this season. I believe at the time his touchdown to INT ratio was just about even, maybe a little bit more. I know now he's finished because I went back at the end of my recording to write down the numbers, and I know he's going to finish with a much worse ratio here. But that's already an early interception for Deion Moultrie, who's been having a pretty great season at safety for us, man. Deion Moultrie's been everywhere, but our offense was unable to do anything with the football, so now LSU is back on the attack, and this time Peterson having no problems finding an open receiver downfield for a completion, and that will give LSU a huge boost on offense, which they desperately need after the turnover. So on 2nd and 11, Peterson pitches this one out quickly, and that's another thing to note here, LSU's run game, as their running back Thomas Pierce gets into the end zone. He had 18 touchdowns last season and over 1,700 yards, and I think he's on pace. Even in this game, he's well on his way to matching those numbers, or at least getting close to them in this season, his senior season. So, but that is the thing to note about this LSU offense, is they are a run-heavy team. The receiving core is really not anywhere on par with ours, but they have a couple pretty decent running backs who have both touched the football a good amount in the season. So we might see the other running back, but for right now, Thomas Pierce is their top guy. And our top guy is that guy right there, number 85, David Reeves, as he gets into the end zone for another humongous touchdown. And he's had a few really massive just chunk plays. I feel like most of the touchdowns we end up watching from Reeves at this stage in the season is really just these kind of big plays from Bishop to Reeves. And it's another humongous touchdown through the air for the Crimson Tide passing game, which is really showing its potency against, again, an LSU team that really doesn't have that potent of a passing game, with their quarterback, who, again, pretty turnover prone, and the receiving core, which is leaving a lot to be desired. But still, in spite of that, LSU's had a decent season. So, but now they're back on offense here. Peterson takes the snap, and pressure is on. He gets rid of it in time. It's a screen pass, and Pierce now finding some open space here with a juke move is going to at least get the first down. So, turning a nothing play at least into something. As Peterson waited to the very last second to get rid of the football. It was nearly disastrous for the Tigers once again. Look at that, man. We had two guys in there putting some pressure onto Peterson. It came kind of right up the middle, untouched here. Peterson did not really pick up on that blitz, but either way, with the screen pass, there was going to be some penetration regardless, and still, it ended up being a successful play for the Tigers and Pierce specifically. So 1st and 10 now just outside the red zone. They're going to go right on back to Pierce with more juke moves here. Gets a great block, by the way. I believe that was the receiver Ryan Kerr, who laid a pretty impressive block and opened up the space here for Pierce to get a little bit open. So fast forward to a 3rd and 8, though, as LSU's moving the wrong direction. Peterson with another pitch on the option play, and this time Pierce is snuffed out on the edge, and that option is completely shut down. Our defense was able to close it off here. Signeben knew. He knew what LSU was going to try and attempt. So bring out special teams here. Still kind of firmly a lot of time left in the second quarter on a 4th and 7. The kick is up here just outside the 15, but it is very much good. That is still very much a chip shot for the Tigers special teams, and they are able to nail it. So that is a good drive still, a successful one, and it ties up the game at 10 apiece. So Bishop in the Crimson Tide offense now heading the other direction. Bishop down the middle of the field, and he finds an open target. I believe it's May who he finds towards the middle of the field. A nice reception for him, and that will continue the forward momentum that we are building here. Just outside the red zone, again here inside the 25. Bishop back to pass, gets rid of it quickly here, kind of takes his check down, and still, man, Hall able to cut up field and create a little bit of chaos around the line to gain. I mean, gets firmly inside of it and gets brought down close to about the 10-yard line. So really turning nothing into something on that play. So now it's 3rd and 3. We're going to fast forward to. We're going to fake the handoff, and pressure's onto Bishop here. Completely unfazed, man. That defensive end, Wiggins, supposedly, was completely unfazed by the play action, man. He saw it through it entirely. So that didn't work here. LSU was not going to be tricked from our play action. So on 4th and 12, we're going to burn off as much time as we can here as we're getting down to about the last minute of the first half, and we're going to take a 13-10 lead over LSU. So it's taken us a while to get to the end of this first half, and there has not been nearly as much scoring as I guess we anticipated, but a 13-10 game. So we are in a bit of a battle here with the Tigers, and again, having a decent season at 6-3, so we can't really write this off entirely. We do need to lock in here in the second half. So we've already forced a punt out of the LSU offense, or rather the special teams, and now a huge return here, big spin move, getting out into open space across the 30. He's going to get brought down inside the 30, and but that was a huge punt return. And I included that just so you guys could see exactly how our field position got as good as it was, because we were already within scoring range off of just the punt return. So Stanley's going to try and make up the rest of the work himself as he bounces out to the outside, and he steps inside the pylon. They're going to say he was out of bounds. I think he kind of toe-dragged or toe-tapped inside of the pylon, but the game's going to say that he was out of bounds. So on 1st and goal here, we're going to hand this one off to the fullback to finish off the job, and he does just that. So we haven't seen too many big plays from J.J. Upton so far this season. I think he has a couple touchdowns on the year, and that might be his 3rd or 4th on the season. So we take a 10-point lead now over LSU, and the gap is starting to widen here. If we can score in this drive, that might be a nail in LSU's coffin potentially, unless their offense can pick up the slack in the second half. And again, we find Hall for another nice pickup across the middle of the field, and we are going to continue this drive. So 1st and 10, once again in scoring range, firmly in LSU territory. Bishop back to pass, clean pocket here, releases towards the corner of the end zone. That pass is going to be caught over a defender's head. I have no idea how Reeves did it, but he tracked that ball perfectly through the air. LSU's defender really didn't have any good sights or visuals on where that football was going to land, but he ultimately, didn't have any impact on the ball. I mean, that's just an amazing play. So it looks like he did make a bit of a play on the football. Just, I don't know, the spacing, the timing, not quite there. So 27-10 now the score, taking a 17-point lead over LSU, and we are back on offense. Bishop hit as he throws, but still the pass gets at least out in the range where it's supposed to be, and May was able to kind of pick up the rest of the slack here as Bishop, a bit of a wilder through the air, getting hit as he throws. But we are going to continue now, and the third quarter comes to a close with LSU's offense going completely silent so far in the second half here in Tuscaloosa. The noise might be just a little bit too much for the Tigers offense, and now we're going to try and score once again, really kind of just hammer in that last nail if at all possible, and we do as Reeves gets a catch in the back of the end zone. Bishop, a huge pass weaving through the traffic through the air, finding the open throwing lane here, just kind of dotting one right down the middle of the field. And yeah, look at that, just all over defender here. Reeves has just been such a physical part of our passing game, and you really need big, strong receivers like that, kind of like the DK Metcalf or Megatron type of build. You really need that to kind of cement the physicality in your receiving core, which we thankfully have, because Hall and May are kind of smaller guys, but Reeves is definitely not. He's a big physical dude. So nearly disastrous fumble for the Tigers here, but they do recover it, but it's still going to be 4th and 3, and now down to essentially their last chance, and that catch is going to be made. Peterson is able to find Santonio Freeman, the freshman receiver, along the sideline, and it looks like he might have been out, but they're going to say he's in. So on 3rd and 4 now, LSU still looking to strike here and add some points. They're going to hand it off to their fullback, and it looks like he's going to get at least close to the first down. Sheldon Pierce, he does get the first down. He's another freshman on this LSU team, so now running with a little bit of tempo here because LSU is going to try and get back into this game here, down 24. A pretty considerable margin for the Tigers here, but Peterson through the air once again, and that passes off the line and sails into the grass. And so that's going to have to re-rack here for 2nd and 10. Just refocus here. So on 2nd and 10, Peterson again, another quick release across the middle of the field, and that pass is going to be completed to, I believe, Gene Wingate. Number 86, I think, is who caught that ball from Peterson, and that's another first down. So LSU within striking distance now on a 1st and goal, just under 3 minutes left to go. They're going to hand it off to the running back, and there's that backup running back I was talking about, Arthur Smith. He's a sophomore. He's the guy who kind of sits behind Thomas Pierce, the main running back at LSU, and they've both kind of touched the ball quite a bit so far this season. Obviously, Smith has not gotten nearly as many touches as Pierce has, but they've both been pretty huge contributing pieces of the run game here at LSU. So LSU goes for the 2-point conversion, and they don't get it, and Stanley says, dude, get away from us, man. This game is over. I'm firm. Start the band, pick up the band, start the fight song. We're done here. This is an over and done game here. We just need to get back and start scoreboard watching to see exactly who we might be playing in bowl season, whoever that may be, and also importantly, see who we're going to be playing in Atlanta, because it's probably going to be a pretty similar track in the Eastern Division. But we already know, we've cemented here, that the West Division is ours. It always has been in the Sick Naben era, outside of 1 or 2 years, and that's just essentially how things have gone. That's just how things are here. Sick Naben, a culture of winning in Tuscaloosa. So we pick up another big win over LSU here, kind of a statement touchdown. I guess didn't really necessarily need it, but we'll take it all the same. So probably could have cut the video a little bit shorter in terms of gameplay here, but I wanted to showcase LSU's last gasp, and of course Stanley had a really impressive touchdown that I thought was cool, so we included that as well, so as he continues to add on to his stats and his numbers in the year. But speaking of stats and or numbers, LSU, really effective running the football. Their rushing production was about the same as ours, but clearly the big difference is, of course, in passing production, which, again, as I mentioned earlier in the video, LSU really does not have all that much effectiveness in that area of their game. So this is kind of where the shortcoming is for them, and presumably why they've lost now 4 games on the year. So still a decent squad here. That running game will get you at least, pretty far. It'll only get you so far, but it'll still get you pretty far. And Bishop really refining his game here. The turnovers have really been limited in the last couple of games here. It was a bit of an issue towards the beginning of the season, as we noted, but now towards the back half of our season, Bishop is really locking in and really kind of minimizing the amount of mistakes that he is making. So, and Stanley with a very, very massive game here. That last run probably is what got him over the 100-yard mark. And Reeves, man, David Reeves, a huge, huge MVP caliber game. That's an All-American type of game that he had. Deion Moultrie with another interception in this game. He's been really, really disruptive in the passing game for a lot of the teams that we've been facing. But here is a massive, massive game. So Florida, who we've never played in this series because Florida has been bad, they finally put together a decent season here, finally have a bowl-eligible season, and it's going to be capped, just about capped off, with a huge upset of South Carolina, who I believe was 10th before this loss. So South Carolina takes a massive, massive loss. I don't know if that changes anything in the Eastern Division, but that is a humongous conference loss for South Carolina. But presumably with 5 losses, I don't think that Florida probably has a shot here, even with the win over South Carolina. But then the bigger thing to note here in the TCU Southern Miss game, essentially deciding Conference USA, TCU manages to pick up the victory over Southern Miss pretty convincingly in Hattiesburg. They go on the road and grab the win over the Golden Eagles, and Southern Miss suffers their first loss on the year. And we, of course, pick up our last 2 wins of the season against Auburn, winning the Iron Bowl in all 17 of our seasons. We never lost the Iron Bowl once. And then, of course, we pick up a big win against Virginia, who didn't have that great of a season either. I anticipated them being pretty mid to pretty bad, and they were. So Here's now a look at your bowl rankings before we get on out of here. It is now us, TCU, and Air Force at the top. So obviously TCU and Air Force weren't really going to be threatened. I think Air Force cemented themselves earlier in the year as the better team in the Mountain West after beating Colorado State. So TCU kind of had to do it later in the year with Southern Miss, but they did. So now all that's left for us to do is to beat South Carolina in Atlanta to win another SEC title, and that'll probably send us to wherever. I forget where the last bowl game is going to be, but send us to the national title game to play the Horned Frogs. So big win streaks going up against win streaks, and hope to see you guys in Atlanta against South Carolina one last time.